Good evening, everyone. We are once again back at the painting station to paint some more miniatures. Today we'll be continuing with at least one character from my D&D games. It's a character I haven't actually started playing yet, but I have a feeling I might play him in a few weeks. I better get him painted because then I'll actually have a painted miniature when the game begins, which would be absolutely weird and strange, but it's a new thing, so let's try that. I also have a little change to the setup here. I found out that I actually have one of these rotating stands that you can see right now. It's run by what's called solar panels, which basically means that it's just give it some light, which I do from the just the lamps in the room when I'm streaming. That's enough to actually make it spin around, so I can place miniatures so you can see them in more detail and rotating around so you can see all sides of the miniature instead of watching me flick it around in my fingers and all that. So if you have any particular minis you'd like to see or whatever, let me know and I'll find them and put them on display. But today's miniature will be this little dude who is a dwarf cleric that I've designed, again using Hero Forge. And I'm basically gonna go for hopefully very bright colors. This is a positive guy, he's got his fist up in the air and just going, yeah, we can do this. That kind of thing. That's the kind of character he's gonna be. It's not gonna be any sad or terrible background story. It's also not gonna be growing up in complete luxury or anything like that. It's just gonna be hopefully just a wonderful character. Positive, outgoing, want to hang out, want to save the world, but not in stupid kind of way. So that's the plan. So I figured bright colors is the way to go. I also printed him without a base because I wanted to be able to, in this pose, if there had been a base here on a small mini, it would have been really difficult to paint all the intricacies of his coat or tunic or whatever it's called going down in the back, and the inside of his coat and all the stuff that usually causes problems. So that's what I'm going for here. And the base I prepared a while ago. It's basically going to be this one, nice and rocky. I mean, it's a mountain dwarf, and he comes from the mines or whatever underground lair. So if you get some nice sharp rocks and a small plateau of a kind that he can stand on. I found the base. I found as an STL that paid, I don't know, $2 or something for a small pack of a couple of these. They're really nicely made. A lot of details in them, but also kind of easy to paint since it's mostly just rocks down here. So I think there was a skull that I missed somewhere, but I mean, if I'm looking at it here, yeah, there it is. That's a small skull. Right. Right there. I may give that a little bit of shade so it actually sticks out, but I kind of like the very, very bright, sort of dry brushed, clean look to this. Almost colorless, build it up from a brownish gray and then all the way up to pure white in the highlights, with some black shade in between. So it's a little bit of blue preserved in it, but it kind of just turns into a cool color in a way. Hey Emily, did you see my wonderful how to do this? There we go. My little thingy there. My rotating display so you can see the minis better. Oh, and you got a phone call. That's fine. That's fine. Just appreciate you just dropping by to say hello. You're always welcome. But anyway, I've not figured out what color I want to make anything on this dude. But before we do any coloring, we will do a quick dry brush just to get a sort of semi-cenital look going. It's not going to be full-on cenital because my airbrush seems to have sprung a leak. I think it's in the air pressure regulator or whatever it's called. Yeah, I'm getting all fancy, Emily. I can even do this. And you see it in a large size. Yeah. And I fiddled around enough with the camera I'm using to actually get a decent frame rate and resolution and focus on all that. And I have to change the manual focus because the difference in distance when he has his sword out like here, so when it's going behind, was enough to make the camera refocus all the time. So, but I actually tinkered with it on a day that I didn't stream, which meant that I had a lot of time doing it instead of sort of doing a last 5 minutes rush job. So anyway, what we're doing here is gonna give him a really, really heavy dry brush with white, because we are going to be painting over all of this. So it's gonna have to work a bit like a zenithal. So it should help with getting the colors to be more bright on the upside, but it will also do wonders for my ability to see what parts of the miniature should be painted what. And yeah, I know I prepared ahead of time. That's it. I feel so dirty for doing that. It's I would promise to never do it again, but it also actually kind of felt good. So I may do that again later. I also have some new ideas for stuff to keep you guys entertained while watching, but that is still on the drawing board. So it's going to be my little secret for a while. But yeah, and again, this is the nice part of using the makeup brushes here. And again, what I'm doing is I'm going from top and going down the mini, raising the brush, going down the mini. That way only the areas pointing upwards get paint. Well, a little bit more, get some paint on it, because we don't want to have just kind of like an edge highlight. We do want to have a white or at least brighter base to work with when we get to the colors. Otherwise it's going to be really difficult making a bright blue cloak. That's nearly impossible to do over a black base, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so what are you up to apart from the work call? Are you doing good? I've been off your Discord for quite a while because starting up after Christmas has been a little rough, and been busy, been playing role-playing games, introduced some friends to Foundry recently. They really enjoy it, so you got the company budget done and sent your CPA. I'm guessing that's an accountant. I'm not fully versed in the intricacies of running a business, and that goes for any country, not just Denmark. Yeah, accountant. Cool. I'm guessing that is a really, really great weight off your shoulders to have that done. Just get it over with, move on to the next year, new tasks, new customers, all that. What I like to kind of lovingly call the real work, although I know that everything else, the sales part and the accounting, all of that is just as much real world work as the rest of it. But yeah, worst part of owning, you run your own company even, so it's, I've never had that administrative gene or drive or whatever. So a lot of people have said, oh, but why don't you start producing your own meat or stuff like that? And I just go, I don't, because I would be terrible at administering a business. That's really not what I want to do. And is, you know, even to the point where I can't really be bothered going and trying to maybe find someone to do that part for me, which others I know, it's called technical people, even though, I mean, brewing would still count as a technical skill, I think. Craftsmanship of some kind. Then people will find someone to administrate that, but it still means you have to want to actually start up a company and run through all of that. And with a lot of these things like brewing mead or writing or all those things, those are my hobbies. I do it in my spare time. Yeah, you kind of, oh, so you didn't just set out and do the I want to make my own company. It just kind of happened. I would love to hear that story, but I'm guessing your work call is coming up, so that'll have to be a different day. Also sounds like a story for a glass of wine and voice chat one day. So that's a nice chalky dwarf. Be curious to see where this will end up. It's been a while since I've done this kind of dry brushing. And yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really nice to have you guys on chat and commenting, but it's so much more nice to have voice chats. I'd actually consider doing that and just running a Discord. And just have people join if they want, and if I like them, obviously. I think that might be fun, just to be able to talk to people, but I don't really know how it would be for those just watching and keeping it in the background. So anyway, this is now a... Well, he went to powder his nose and spilled it all over himself. That happens. Now, I was thinking, and Emily, probably good that you leave, because I'm gonna completely butcher this miniature with a terrible color scheme. Yeah, I mean, the nose powder, you know, just sometimes it's just all over. You know how it is. The best intentions of just powdering your nose, and then, you know, the brush goes on and just the cheeks a little bit, and then it's off, and then you move further, and then your ears, and then the beard, and once you have the powder and the beard, you know, then it never stops. So, right. I'm also hoping it's gonna work well to just hold him without the base. I usually use a paint handle for most of what I do. Can scratch up the paint on the base a little bit, of course, that's to be expected. But at the same time, it just adds more weight and everything. So, anywho, I am gonna need a big brush. I also cleaned up last time, which meant that I actually, you know, rinsed all my brushes and put them nicely away, so they're not just ready anymore. It's just confusing. I'm used to making a mess all over. Actually, maybe I shouldn't start with... I'm not going to start with the... Yeah, I'm not going to start with the cloak. I'm going to go... There we go, fluorescent green. No, you're right, we don't. That's too much, but we do dare going into a Sherwood green from Scale Color. If my camera would like to focus, there we go. It's a little slow, but... I've also worked a little bit with the lighting settings on the camera to hopefully make it a little more clear what goes on in here. It should be able to focus a little better, and the last stream I did was really dark, so that should hopefully change. Okay, so on with the green. I have no idea what I'm gonna do here. I'm probably gonna make all of his legs metal. I mean, he's a cleric. Clerics wear heavy armor, so I think it's okay to just cheat and make the legs fully metal. Hopefully the same kind of effect as on the mini that's on display. We'll see. Yeah, it is definitely more difficult. See, my hand is shaking like a lot. You can actually see the miniature moving. That's my fingers shaking. The paint handle does wonders for that. People also have other tricks like placing your wrists on a heavy brick to stabilize them. When I can, it's a little difficult here with the way I'm seated. You just put your wrists or the base of your hands together, because then at least you're sort of synchronizing your shakes between the hands. Using the table for stability is also a good call. Yeah, lots of different ways of doing it. But for now, we'll just make do with having the shakes. Hey Ori, you made it! Welcome. I think this is the first time you're here, so that'll be fun. How are you doing? It's morning for you. You're probably just getting up, considering how late you were playing and streaming yesterday. Yeah. You're okay. I am glad to hear that. So what I'm doing here, as I think I've told you, is I'm painting miniatures, and this one is for Dungeons and Dragons. It's a character I may be playing in a few weeks. Yeah, Ori, meet Emily. Emily is absolutely wonderful. She is part of the Incorrigible Party podcast, which is a podcast with people playing D&D, recording their sessions, doing a wonderful job of editing it, thanks to Leland. And then they release it, I think once per week these days. And it is so much fun to hear you guys play. I highly recommend listening to it. Even if you never played role-playing games like D&D before or anything like that, it is still really fun because there's so much humor and a good story and character progression and all that. So I will see if I can find my keyboard and do a... Yay! It works. It's always fun to try stuff you haven't tried in 6 months. But yeah, there you have some links for them. I know that Emily and John also sometimes stream board games on their Twitch channel, which is also fun. And so yeah, it's a very nice community. I highly recommend them. Yeah, that is a very good point, Em. The first sessions, Bill and Elena had never tried D&D or role-playing games before, whereas all the others were seasoned professionals with years and years under the belt. Many monsters slain, much treasure found. and it's really fun listening to new people learning something that I learned when I was, what, so even a teenager. I was 11 when I started playing D&D. So I was pretty young, I think. I was probably normal for my age group. But yeah. But anyway, it's really fun to see them get into the game. And one thing is understanding the rules. Like you're playing a board game or a video game for that matter. You need to figure out how does the world work? What bonuses do you get? And what, all those things. What can you do? How do you make an attack roll? Those kind of things. But what's been even more fun, I think I re-listened to some of it and it was so cool hearing Bill not knowing what he can actually do outside of the rules. And a lot of the best role-playing I've done have all been in what we call sandbox worlds, where you have a lot of freedom. You can basically, you're in a town, medieval setting, fantasy setting, think Middle-earth, Lord of the Rings, if that helps, something like that. And you're basically just standing there and you go, but what can I do? Where do I go? Who can I talk to? And if you have a good dungeon master, they will of course help you out in the beginning and guide you. But a really good dungeon master, once you have the hang of the basics, will teach you that you can do whatever you like. This is basically an open world. It's not bound by rules like a computer game. You have an actual person. Oh yeah, the too many rules. I can get that. It can be a little daunting to begin with. But again, you don't need to understand all of it to begin playing. And it's far more fun to have good role playing and good storytelling, character development, those kind of things. Is way more fun, and to me that is what drives a role-playing game and makes it something so much more than board games, is that you have the option of saying what you want to do, and then there's a person reacting to it, the dungeon master or game master who runs the world and say, okay, so you want to go find a tailor to get a new suit or whatever, and they'll make the world come to life through your choices and reacting to them, but also making sure that the world keeps evolving around you and things happen and people will start talking to you, and of course the DM will try to guide you towards whatever adventure they have in mind. But that's still, yeah, it's so much fun. So yeah. Exactly. Your fellow players, they'll help you get started without a doubt, and what you can do if you find good players. Like with most things, if not all things in life, there are friendly people and there are less friendly people. If you find some cool friends and people to hang out with and play, they will definitely help you, guide you, make sure you understand everything you need to understand. And also, and I think that's a really important thing, is that sometimes when questions come up, I think it's really important for people to just tell the new players that, oh yeah, that's a good question. It doesn't matter right now. We can take that after the play session or whatever, and just go with the flow and just accept that you'll not understand everything, but yeah. Oh, cool. Exactly. There's so much story in the Incorrigible Party podcast. Really, really enjoy it. Though I think it's fair to give a warning that the first couple of episodes, some of the microphones are suboptimal. Is that fair to say? Oh, mad about doing that. Yeah, well, enjoy M. I'll probably be here for an hour and a half, so I hope your meeting doesn't take that long. And That's purely me being selfish, because then you may drop back here. Anyway, until then, I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. Ori, I actually saw some of your stream this morning when you burned down the ship. I was just caught in a kind of relaxed work meeting and just had running without sound. That's why I didn't say hello. But it looked like I was just watching you run around and just doing the stuff you normally do in video games and all that. That's fine. You find some chests running around on the island, and then you run out on the ship. And that's fine. I mean, running around on a pirate ship in a pirate game, that's cool. And then you started bombarding it. I just kind of went, wait, what are we doing now? But hey, you looked like you had fun. To go. Okay, I hate painting yellow. I think it is actually visible on the camera that it does not cover well right here. And I also got probably a cat hair lodged in my brush, which doesn't help. There's also one in the actual paint on the mini that needs to go away. There we go. The joys of having pets. When you start to quit the game, you start over with everything. So we thought it'd be a good end to the game. Definitely. I've never tried Sea of Thieves myself. I have as much time as anyone else, but I don't spend as much time playing video games as I used to. So there are a lot of newer games I haven't tried yet. It's the luxury problem of the gaming industry, is that so many cool, really good games are released that you can't play them all. Yeah, I like the co-op aspect of it, and running your own ship with multiple roles you have to fulfill. I've been dying to get some good games with that. Ever since we had some in the mid-90s. We played a game called Codename Eagle, which is World War I style, tanks and Zeppelin, blimp, stuff like that. And you could do some kind of cooperative, two people sitting in the same truck and driving around and things like that. But it was really, really buggy. So you could drive a truck into the blimp. I remember we did that. But I also remember that it didn't really do the collision detection well, which meant that even though you could get it up in the blimp, when you started, what the crap am I doing here? When you started flying the blimp, then all of a sudden it would work for a short while, and then all of a sudden there would be some kind of glitch or rounding error calculation problem in the physics engine, which would make whatever you drove up into the blimp drop halfway through the floor, and just for the briefest second it would sit there until it decided that the blimp was now colliding with the truck or whatever, and then everything would just blow up in a huge explosion. So yeah, not well implemented, but it was kind of fun. And the concept of one person driving and the other being a gunner or taking charge of something else was really, it struck with me as being a good kind of sort of asymmetric gameplay. In many games these days, that's kind of normal. You have vehicles you can drive around in and stuff like that. In PUBG or I think Modern Warfare has it as well. We could just set several people in one vehicle. But having it as a more sort of central theme in a game is kind of cool. And I think the pirate ships are a pretty big thing in Sea of Thieves. They definitely look cool. Ugh. I hate painting yellow. It covers like crap, and it's just terrible. Yeah, but I think it's okay that it takes a while to learn how to steer a pirate ship, because it's a huge sailing ship. It's not supposed to be simple, so that's cool. And also, I like games that reward persistence, or persistency, whatever it's called, where you actually, if you keep doing something and put in some effort, then you get better at the game. And we're not just talking about being better at aiming or sort of generic skills like that, but actually learning, how does this ship work? What can you do? What are the different roles? When is the best time to fire the guns, or whatever it is? Those kind of things. Rewarding people who actually learn those things, I think that's cool. Other players, cannon fire, or sea monsters. Which of those three is worse? Cannon fire, other players, or sea monsters? You think they're all bad. I totally get that. So okay, so I think maybe yellow was a little bit too optimistic, considering how dark the base coat or priming on this one still is. But hey, we'll give it a few layers, see where we end, shade it down a little bit to make it prettier. It'll be fine. The way I paint miniatures, just so you know, is that I'm not going for any kind of award-winning standard. I'm not going to enter these into competitions or anything like that. It's strictly to have a painted miniature for our games, because it's just so much more fun when miniatures are painted. And I have years of experience saying this completely unscientific fact, that painted miniatures always fare better in games than unpainted. So paint your miniatures and you will roll higher on the dice. You will draw better cards. You will win more. That's kind of a universal truth with absolutely no basis in science or anything else. And thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's coming along. I'm also not a very fast painter. The people who would have finished at least one miniature by now, I just like to take my time. I don't want to stress over this. There's too much stress in our daily lives. I do this to relax, have fun, and chat with cool people. That's why I stream. I paint miniatures to paint miniatures, and creative hobby. You get to play with colors. So yeah. Oh, that's cool. It's always great when people, show other people how to do it and just sit there in game stores. We have the same in some of the stores in Copenhagen, which is close to where I live. And they actually have a full painting setup, so you can just drop by, and if they're not too busy, they'll help you get started. That's really, really nice thing to do for the hobby, and of course for their own sales, because then you get sucked into the world of miniature painting, which doesn't stop at a starter set and a single brush. Oh, you end up with so much more. Yay, Gladio and AJ. Hello from 29C. We should point out that that is your current temperature. Well, not your temperature, but the temperature where you are. Say hello to Ori. Ori is a video game streamer that I've gotten to know recently. They have a lot of fun games going on, her and her husband and some of their friends. And they do build from time to time, play Phantasmaphobia, that game where you ghost hunters. Phasmophobia, there we go. And we are painting a dwarf forge cleric for D&D. And on display we have my tiefling paladin that I finished last time, which was what, Sunday, I think, can't remember. And I got this sweet little setup with the rotating display. Thank you, AJ. Thanks for helping Ori. So, is the vacation going better, or are you still feeling a little down? And both Bill and AJ, Bill is Gladio, they're also in the Incorrigible party. So they also know a little bit about role-playing games. You know a lot about role-playing games. You've been playing for almost 2 years by now. And you have great storytelling skills. So, and they also both stream games from time to time. So they're also worth following on Twitch. See, Bill, I'm. Oh yeah. Yeah, from time to time. You stream way too little, Bill. I miss watching your streams. How to say my name? That is a good one. I rarely say it on stream because I tend to pronounce it wrong when I'm speaking in English. Because Danish is very, very flat and boring language. We don't really have a lot of tone going up and down. But to say it is as flat and straight as you possibly can. Skjelm. So a little bit like scary, the beginning, but then you have the J, which is kind of a soft J, I think. It's not a Y sound. And the LM at the end is not an sound, it's an M. So it's Skjelm. Plain and simple. But it always trips up people, especially English speakers and most Danish people as well. I have to admit, it's not the easiest name for anyone. There, metal there, blue there. Oh, more green. Yeah, AJ, Skjelm, except that the E and Y there are kind of protracted, Skjelm. So it's really, really short and nothing is just sort of dragging on or making any kind of real impression. I remember once actually kind of going, okay, so you take the SK sound from scare, you take the J from kind of yellow, I think would work. But without the E sound, then you take the A from apple. And the LM from actually calm rather than elm. So that's what a scary yellow apple that's calm. Maybe I can remember that. Make a limerick out of it. Would be a fun challenge. Skjelm. Yeah, basically something like that. And yeah, I'm still on the mini screen. Just bragging that I got something up and running and working here. But yeah, I found out that I actually had the rotating stand from my 3D printer, the curing station where you harden the resin after you've printed the minis, and it's run by solar panels, which means that in the UV chamber for the resin printer, it'll run crazy fast, and here just with the normal light, it just runs itself. So no need for an external power source, anything like that. It's literally just putting it down on the table, putting a miniature on it, pointing a camera at it. So yeah, I mean, it does mean I have 3 cameras up and running now. I had to hijack the camera I normally use on my other computer, but hey, it's worth it. Yeah, thanks, Bill. I actually finally found the settings for doing manual focus on the camera, so I can also prevent it from, focusing on different areas when the miniature turn. That's a little tricky, and then because I skipped sort of intermediate layer, I have something called VCam, where you can do all sorts of things like zooming, changing color, saturation, brightness, contrast, all of those things. Bypassing that meant that I got full access to the camera, so I can actually run it in 1080 at 60 frames, and that made it a lot easier to actually get the focus right, and setting that manually so it doesn't change every time things change and so on. So that was fun. And as I told Emily earlier, I did all of this on a day that I wasn't streaming, so it wasn't kind of a last minute effort, which is how I normally do things. So I actually had a lot of time just doing this. So that was fun. And we also need to shake up some paint. Oh, that's good. That's good, Bill. Reading more Terry Pratchett is never a bad thing. How do you like his writing? I'm really glad you like it. It can be kind of hit or miss because I know that he can write. I think he has some really it's a word here, sort of internal jokes, kind of where you have to get some kind of reference to fully get it, but it is so worth reading. Ori, he's mostly famous for his fantasy series called the Discworld Novels. It is a truly genius work, and the world he's built is literally a disc, which gives rise to things like doesn't the sun rise at the same time all over the disc, and his explanation for that, and this I think kind of sets the tone for everything else, is that the sunlight here in this world is lazy, so it can't be bothered getting up at the same time. It just slowly crawls over the disk, and that's the kind of stuff he'll write, and he makes it work. He's really good at putting words to all these things. Or was he? Sadly, he passed away a few years ago, at an old age, I might add. So he had a long life, and I think he begins some of his books, some of the first ones, with a phrase that kind of stuck to me because it was also used in a 90s Discworld game. It goes something like this. In a second-hand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, behold the great Atuin, and then goes on for a while more. But the whole kind of thing where he plays with words, because normally the astral plane is like another dimension. But here he says, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, taking it as an airplane, a flying machine of some kind. And those kind of small linguistic jokes, they're all over his books, and they can be a little tricky to read, but I've learned a lot about the English language from reading those books. So yeah. And there's also the I don't want to spoil too much, but I don't think spoiling 30-plus-year-old books is kind of a thing. But basically, on this disc, going all the way around it at the edge, you have not the circumference of the disc, but the circumfence, which is literally a fence that keeps in some of the debris that falls over the edge and just into the emptiness of space. The disc is of course flying on the back of a huge turtle that's floating through. Oh, sorry, it's on 4 elephants that stand on the back of a huge turtle, giving rise to a specific branch of science called zooastrology. Astrozoology, of course. Astrozoology. Oh yeah, and the Grim Reaper as well. But the astrozoologists are trying to find the answer to the ultimate question. I mean, the most important question ever, which is, what is the sex of the turtle? So they will launch expeditions over the side, trying to sneak a peek and see what kind of turtle it is. It's just this. It's so messed up, but at the same time it works so well. And yeah, the Grim Reaper. I mean, death is a person, and an ongoing gimmick is that all the wizards in this world actually deserve or somehow are entitled to be picked up by Death himself. So it can't just be a lackey or no one or anyone. Death himself, itself, whatever. I don't really know if there's a right pronoun for Death in the Discworld or anywhere else. But he has to show up and pick up these wizards, which lead to... I will not spoil if they find out about the turtle. That you're gonna have to read the books for that. But there are some hilarious scenes where one of the wizards refuses to die, even though he's hanging from a branch with wild wolves about to tear him apart, and just clinging on there, and Death is literally sitting in the tree next to him going, why don't you just let go and get it over with, and then there'll be no more pain and you can get on with it. And the wizard is just stubborn going, no, I won't. And it's kind of, what can you do with someone who refuses to just die, even though it's their time? And of course, the wizard gets out of it somehow, but yeah. And yeah, Bill, I don't really know if I can comment on the how confusing it is to read, because the first one I read was also the first book he wrote. If you read The Color of Magic, followed by The Light Fantastic, you get a lot of information about the world in general and the tone and style of the setting. And I think going into some of the later books can be a bit difficult because there's a lot of knowledge you just don't know, so you don't have the references for this whole thing with the... In broad terms, the witches versus the wizards, which is kind of a thing in this in this world, which is very, very nicely portrayed in the book called Sorcery, where I think the sort of blurb for that one is that the seventh son of the seventh son was it's called whatever, prophesied to be a powerful sorcerer. The seventh son of a seventh son was in fact a daughter. That kind of where it goes. But the witches want her because she is truly the sorcerer, capital S. So they wanted to get into university, but the university is run by a bunch of old men. If you can make all the comparisons to the real world they are appropriate. Not that saying that Pratchett was misogynist. Also not saying that he wasn't, I don't actually know, but he's portraying the same world that we have here. So getting a girl into the unseen university is a huge thing and difficult, but it gives rise to a whole debate about why shouldn't she, which I think is a good way. He's using satire and parody to take up some real world issues that may not be apparent at first, but are very relevant even now, 30, 35 years later. So that's cool. Okay, that's cool. But also another thing where you might have come across his writings, or at least his stories, is the series Good Omens, which I believe is on one of the streaming services. So I don't know if you've seen that. If not, I recommend it. It is, I think it's one of David Tennant's best roles, at least one of the best roles I've seen him in. But basically Good Omens is a collaborative work that Terry Pratchett did with Neil Gaiman, or Gaiman, however it's pronounced. And it is basically about the apocalypse, the end of the world, and what happens when things don't quite go as planned. Okay, you haven't watched it. Well, it will still be there when you do have the time and opportunity and money for it, yeah. I think actually, Good Omens is actually really good conversion from the media of a book to the media of a TV series. You can do different things with different media. So, of course, all the things you can do in a book. I think they have a narrator in Good Omens. So that can help a little bit and kind of make a different kind of series where you have more sort of the bookish, we're telling you a story kind of feel to it. But at the same time, it's just different when you're portraying what characters do through their actions and dialogue, and not their inner dialogue with themselves, stuff like that. So am I going completely off camera here? I probably am. I probably just move my chair like that. There we go. So yeah. Okay, Bill, I'm gonna need your help here. What color should his beard be? We're going for a bright blue cape. Brown or gray, yeah. I can do something like the hair on the mini that's rotating. That should be fairly easy to do. And will probably look good. I want to keep the colors bright, so I'm gonna go with the gray. For that. Yeah, gray. I think I didn't see him as gray because he's still a low-level character, so I didn't see him as old enough to have gray hair, but at the same time, why not? And here I have mental pictures of that meme with Bilbo and the ring going, after all, why shouldn't I have gray hair? Yeah, no, gray's good. I mean, just look at my beard. It's steadily turning more and more gray. I should also remember to mention that the music we are listening to, yes, we are watching the music. If you can see the music, just remain seated for a while. It'll pass. No, but the music is Adrian von Ziegler. He's an Austrian musician who makes a lot of really cool music of various kinds, instrumental music, and he allows people to use it for free on streams, non-commercial projects, and so on. Got a lot of fun, cool tunes up on YouTube. You can also find him on Spotify. So Adrian von Ziegler, go look him up if you like the music. Yeah, I mean, I found it. I've been using it for role-playing games, background music for that, or when we're playing board games or whatever. I've used it for years, and then I realized, after starting streaming, that he actually allows people to use it. And I just went, yeah, please, thank you. That's really, really cool. So, if he's going to have gray hair, we're going to need a bit more dry brushing with the white. Yeah, at least highlighting. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of depth to his music, and he does all of it himself, which is really cool. So he's, I think, in one of the interviews, or just small blog posts or whatever he had, he actually said that he can kind of play all instruments enough to make some music, but he's not really an expert in any of them. And he said in a kind of I interpret it as a kind of a humble way, which he doesn't need to be. But he kind of went sort of like, yeah, I'm not really good enough to be a professional flute player or violin player or whatever, but he knows all of them well enough that he can actually make a full song, tune, whatever it's called, without vocals. But he can do that. I find it amazing. It's really, really cool. So Emily is back. I hope the meeting went well. And thank you for the lurk. I appreciate it. Basically, here we're just doing a quick bunch of highlights. The thing about printed miniatures and heavy dry brushing is that you can kind of see the layers, and you can see the polygons of the miniature quite clearly. So the dry brushing looks a little weird from time to time. That's okay in this case, because we'll just highlight it. Normally we just put the white here and then give it a shade. And hello Wookie, good to see you as well. Hope you're doing good. I don't know if this is where the cool kids hang out. I like to think so. Definitely just got a lot cooler to be here with you showing up. Yes, Wookie, we so need to play Deep Rock. I've played a little bit more with some of the other classes, and haven't gotten around to the engineer yet. Probably being a bit afraid of it being too much like work. I'm technically speaking an engineer myself, by training and job title now as well. It's weird. But I played the scout and I played the driller, and I didn't really like them for soloing. Prefer the gunner a lot more. So I'm always up for playing gunner in that game. I think I'm just gonna for now stick to it and just get really good and just level him up. Yeah. Oh, or you might like it. The fun thing about Deep Rock, what I like about it is that you do have these missions you go on. You have to bring back stuff from a cave, and then you have to dig down through the cave or explore it, go deeper and deeper, and fight off the hordes of aliens that show up once in a while to just eat you. Basically, it's really really well made. It's quite old by now, I think, by modern standards. So it has a lot of work behind it. It's a lot of content and a really good community and support base, it seems, as well. So that is cool. Right, I think it's time for some shading. And we are, as always, an indie time. Yeah, that's true. It's Coffee Stain that's doing it. They also did Satisfactory, I think, which I also liked. Oh yeah, the turntable cam. Turntable cam is a new thing, so I'm really happy I got it up and running. It's the first time I'm using it, and I also have, obviously, a large version of it, because I figured, hey, okay, the Coffee Stain is a publisher, then I'm confusing things again, like publishers and developers and stuff. So yeah. I've never been good with names, and company names even less so, but I think we need a different model here, just for show. A little bright. That is okay. We can do something about that. Where with the auto exposure? There we go. That's more like it. That character there is from Warhammer Underworlds, one of the Chaos Warriors of Khorne. So yeah, Barbarian is actually not too far off, really. Basically, I would say Berserker more than just Barbarian. Completely and utterly messed up in their heads. So, on to shading. And now this is where we're kind of gonna cheat big time, because I'm not gonna do a very sort of varied shading on this. I'm gonna take all the yellow and the green and the belt and just shade it with the same color shade, because it kind of actually works well together. I've also made a huge mess of his arms with the yellow, but that's fine. We'll fix that later when we get to the other colors. Okay, camera, you're being stupid. I believe in talking to and shouting at your cameras to make them work better. So here we're basically going for it's the Army Painter Flesh Wash, which is kind of brownish, reddish brownish shade, which actually works surprisingly well with the colors we've chosen here. May not be dark enough for the belt, which is already brown, but it kind of works for the green as well, because it's not as hard. You can use black shade for green, which can work really well. You can also put your palm down on your wet palette and get paint all over. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. But the brownish shade goes really well with the yellow. That's kind of intuitive to figure out that browning it down, whatever, works. But for the green, it gives it a little bit of a dirty look, sort of gritty, unclean look. But that can be fixed with a little bit of highlighting afterwards, if you're so inclined, or you can just leave it in place. Let's see what we have here. You kind of see this shade, and it's not sort of a hard, brutal black shade. Sorry, but it works. As always, just get enough shade on that it actually flows down into the recesses, but not so much that it pools and makes a mess of everything. By the way, Bill and AJ, how's it going with your painting? I remember you doing a little bit of that at some point. Yes, if you think the color is still too bright, you can just add a second coat of shade, and it will be a little more sort of pronounced, emphasized. It's also kind of important to watch your fingers, because the shade will remain wet for quite a while, and you don't want to stick your fingers into it, because that's gonna ruin the effect. Okay. I think that did it. Then we just need to hold him for a while he dries off. Actually, whoa. Hey, people talking in chat. I'm not used to that. Thank you. So yeah, Bill, you need to get back into painting. You also need to stream more, play more games with the rest of us, and play more D&D, and have more vacations and all that. So I'm sorry, but you just cannot be allowed to keep your job. You're gonna have to do an early retirement. So 9 or 10 PST would be 4 or 5 AM where I am, I think. Oh yeah, you're on your phone, Bill. So full-time D&D and miniature painting, and oh, Emily, the visit all the board game cafes in Europe. Oh, thank you, Bill. I look forward to that. Although I have to say that the only New Year's resolution I've ever actually managed to keep was the one where I promised myself to not make any more New Year's resolutions. So, yeah. Bill, you need to run a session. You absolutely have to. I want to fuck up your games. No, I don't. I actually don't. but I do want to try you as a dungeon master. Which reminds me that I haven't actually listened to episode 2 of Campus Nacht, but I will real soon. It just came out just this week, a few days ago, and I just started up back at work after Christmas vacation, and it's a little stressful and hectic, but I will get to it. I promise you that. My hands are not steady enough for this. That hopefully just makes it more entertaining. Yeah, close enough. I will read up on chat. It's just when doing the shades, I find that it's a really good idea to finish all of it in one go. It's so much easier to get everything right. Ugh. Again with the shaking hands is crap. I mean, I really like painting him without the base and then just putting him on the base afterwards. But it is really, really hard for me to do this right. I think it's going. I think it's working. Oh, Ori, you do not want to go down this hole. It is time, money, effort, frustration, but at the same time, it's also so super fun and rewarding. So, okay, and Bill left. I hope he has a good day. So, but yeah, but I think it is fun. Again, you can see the shade here on the beard and the head, the hair. It just adds so much more detail to the miniature. It makes it more easy to see the heightened areas from afar. And we also need to do his face. And exactly, Wookie, that's a really good point you have there. A lot of the new board games will include a ton of minis that are minis you don't really buy to buy minis. You buy them to get the game and play with it. And a standard Warpainters starting set, I did some videos. They're on my YouTube channel, which is also called Scat. I should link it somewhere. I actually did a test where I used a Army Painter starter set that has about 9 colors or so, and 1 shade, 1 brush. That and 1 extra brush for fine details. And I used only those paints to paint a miniature. And to show how that went, I will find it and put it on display. So that one here is also one of the Warhammer Underworld's Chaos Warrior things, Berserker types. But I did my best to use all the different colors on this one. So you can see you have the green, red, blue, yellow, some skin colors, some brown and red and white, black and white, and a metallic paint as well. And then you have 1 shade, so it's kind of cool. It's done in just, I think, yeah, think I spent 3 or 4 hours on the miniature, and that was just a test to see how does it work if you just buy a single set, what can you get with it. And I kind of rushed it again, did for the has to look good when it's standing on a table, and I think it worked. And with a little practice, it's very possible to do this a lot faster than I did. But it's that's what you get. It was about 200 Danish kroners, which would be with I think it's about 30 bucks or so for a starter set in US dollars, roughly, plus minus, give or take. So it is very much possible to do that with not a lot of money, and it includes a brush that's a good all-round brush. But adding in another brush for $4 or $5 for fine details. So yeah, you can get started on a budget, and there's a lot of really cool videos on YouTube. Very helpful. What else do you have? Oh yeah, for $100 you could get a lot of paint and a lot of things. And yeah, Blood Rage, games like Blood Rage, Zombicide, Imperial Assault, Bloodborne. So many games these days have a lot of miniatures, and it's kind of cool, a lot of it as well, because the miniatures, there'll be a bunch of the same type of miniatures. I can't remember what they're called in Blood Rage, but some kind of infantry or standard units for that. And then you'll have some monster type special creatures, miniatures that has only a single one. But you won't run the risk of what I came across back when I started painting in the 90s. I played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and that meant painting 20 crossbowmen. I had a dwarf army, so 20 crossbowmen, 20 spearmen, another 20 crossbowmen, another 20 spearmen, and then you had a cannon. And the cannon was fun to paint because it was something different, and also it's a cannon. But that was a lot of tedious assembly line painting, where it was basically a matter of just churning out the miniatures rather than having fun painting. That's why I prefer these days, when I'm painting for war games, I prefer skirmish games like Malifaux. It could be Kill Team if you're into the Warhammer 40k universe. All those kind of things. Crocheting. I can crochet. Not very good at it, but I can. Made several Totoros. They make great gifts, by the way. People get so happy when they get a home crocheted Totoro. And I've done other stuff. So yeah. I actually learned, when I grew up, me and my sister learned a lot of skills like crafting skills, knitting, which I never really got good at. I think we learned crocheting. I learned crocheting as well, and various other things like that. It's kind of part of what we were taught, and it just kind of stuck with me. Not that I was good at it, but the fact that, yeah, sure, of course you can crochet. Why not? And then some years ago, I had a friend at work who was really, really good at crocheting, and she was doing the amigurumis, as it calls, which is, I think, Japanese for it's called crochet doll or toy or whatever. And there's so many pre-patterns out there, and you can make such wonderful small creatures. So I kind of felt, well, that was cool. I wanted to take it up again. So she taught me how to crochet, the basics, and then YouTube videos and going back and forth and trying. So yeah. The magic wand. I have missed something. Yeah, and of course John has painted some of the Blood Rage minis, and of course they look good when John is painting them. So Now he's drying again. So while he's drying, we can dig out the good old gunmetal, which I really like. That's the one I used on, where did it go? This dude here. It gives a really, really nice sort of, not dark silver, because it has a little bit of a tone to it. It's slightly, somewhere between green and brown. Really, really toned down. Yeah. Okay, Emily, I will see you. See you later. Say hi to John for me. What we're doing now is we're cleaning up a bunch of this stuff under his arms, and I knowingly just painted all of that yellow up here, despite some of it being the straps holding his wrist guard in place. And I did that, giving you all the cheating tricks here, because I knew I was going to have to go in here anyway and paint it metal. So why bother painting the yellow really, really precisely when I know I can easily cover the yellow with the metallic color here. So that is, my friends, a good way to make things easier for yourself. Okay, see you, Wookie. Have fun at work. And see, again, it's not much really in terms of effects, this down here, but on a table, you'll be able to see the reflection in the metal, and that'll be enough to trick your eyes into thinking that I did a very good and fine and precise job of it. This is a lot of the techniques when painting really is, it kind of feels like cheating sometimes, but it's all about making it look good. It doesn't have to be correct. So yeah, oh, he's got the small bands in his beard. Let's do them. I'm just gonna do those metal first, and then I'm gonna give them some gold as well to make them stand out even more. I think those were the only two. Yeah, he's actually gonna be a cleric, which is both a warrior and a, well, not sorcerer, but he's getting his powers from some kind of deity. That's the lore about clerics in D&D. So he's a very, very devout follower of the dwarven god Moradin, which is basically their smithing god. So definitely sorcerer, spellcaster at least, and what's it called? Yeah, warrior all in one. So yeah, right, so the dry brushing. So dry brushing is really, really hard on the brushes, and the bristles just tears it up. So I'm not using my good brushes for that. I'm just using the cheap sort of craft store a craft store can have good one, but the really, really cheap, less than $1 per brush for that. And you just basically just do it here where people can see it. Just do it over here where people can see it. Just add a lot of it here, and you just wipe almost all of it off, but there's still a little bit of paint lodged in the bristles here. So we can do, should be able to do this, which is right now not really working. So Winter Nights, are you thinking about Neverwinter Nights, maybe? Because I actually do believe that if it was Neverwinter Nights, that's pretty closely modeled to how D&D was back at the time. D&D has seen a lot of changes in the 40-ish years it's existed, since 1974. And it's actually a night without the K. But I mean, given the theme of the game, night with K makes a lot of sense. Yeah, no worries. So yeah. Okay, so lesson learned here. Do the dry brushing thing on the metal parts before doing the other stuff, because it spills over to the other parts really, really easily. It's not too clear. Yeah, I played Neverwinter Night 2. That was a while back. I think I played both the first Neverwinter Night, but also the second. And it's really, really fun, especially because it is the kind of dungeon crawl, running around, beating monsters, finding treasure. It's that kind of game, which I really like. And I played, I think it was the first Neverwinter Night I played when we still did LAN parties where we drag our computers over to each other and just sit around, and we played the first Neverwinter Night an entire Easter vacation. So yeah. And yeah, I think I finished it at some point, but it's really long. There's a lot of content in it. So good value for money though. So here we have Mask of the Betrayer. I've not tried that one. But again, it's the thing about the gaming industry, both board games and computer games these days. Actually, so many cool games come out that I want to play. And when you hear about it, it sounds so cool and absolutely kind of like I have to play this game. And then when it comes down to it, you just don't have the time. At least I don't. And again, yeah, sure, we have the time, but we choose to do other things. And often that thing is to do play other games. I also try to get myself in gear for making games. I do that as a hobby once in a while. Not really sort of big games or anything like that, just playing around with fun concepts mostly. Having fun. There's a concept called game jams, where you basically have like a weekend to make a game. And you have to make everything from scratch. And I like doing it then because it's really concentrated and focused, and it's over in a few days. So it's not really lingering. I mean, you can keep working on it if you like the concept and think something can come out of it. But basically just doing a single weekend. I've used it a lot in the past to just learn new things about all the new tools that are available. Or I think a year or two ago, I decided that what's always holding me back is I'm a programmer by education and trade. So what's been holding me back? It's mostly been the lack of good graphics. So I decided I wanted to learn a little bit more about doing 3D graphics. And then I did a game jam where I didn't really care about the game. It was some kind of simple shooty thing came out of it. But I wanted to do some real, quote unquote, real computer graphics, 3D graphics as well. So I spent half the time figuring out how to make one boat. But hey, I got a boat and it was sailing around. Then you can have more boats because you can just copy paste them. And then I made a simple shooty game where you had to shoot all the boats coming at you. Terrible game, but I learned a lot. So yeah. Oh, hey AJ, welcome back. If you don't know any programming, well, then you have to learn. I would actually suggest, and that's a serious suggestion here. If you do want that, take a look at the tool engine called Unity. You've probably come across it, heard about it and all that, but it really is a good place to start because you can get away with you swam, you drank, you swank, you dram, you drove, something. Seems like good. No, but anyway, Ori, the thing about Unity is that you can actually get a lot done with very little programming. You can get things up and running, I would say almost without programming at all, because you have a fully enabled physics engine. So you have gravity, you have collisions, you can basically dump a bunch of objects into the game and they will start moving on their own. Just enable gravity, blah, 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 simple stuff, but that's not programming. That's just clicking the right check marks in a dialog box. And that will get you started really quickly. And I should also say that one of the reasons I really like Unity is that I used to work for them a long time ago. So it's kind of personal. I was only there for a year, but even so, that's 10 months, 11 months. But I just got a glimpse into a lot of things, really talented people. I've been in the computer game industry for a few years when I joined them, and I got a really cool view into the philosophy of the original creators and founders of Unity. And they had the core belief that everyone should be able to make games. And so they made a tool that enabled people to do that. I think that is a really, really cool way of going about it. And then it got really big and it's evolved a lot since then and become a real business and everything, but it's still, the core of it was that, and this was back in the mid-zeros that they started doing this. I think 2005-ish, give or take a few years, that they started out on this journey to create Unity, and they've come really far. And at that time, there were some commercial engines, as they're called, but they all required that you did a lot of programming. What they did is that they actually make a 3D editor. Oh yeah, that makes sense. A lot of surprisingly large games are made with Unity, which is interesting because a lot of the Unity games are known for having kind of a very special look to them, because there's something about the engine and the feel of it and the way it does 3D graphics and menus and all that, where people kind of go, oh yeah, I can see that this is made in Unity. And they're not wrong, but you can tweak it a lot when you need to make it look completely different. So yeah, that's cool. But anyway, Unity would be a good place to start. It's free for personal use. That's another thing. They in the period I was there, they went from charging a surprisingly small amount of money for Unity to making the basic sort of core version, making that completely free for non-commercial use. And non-commercial is like if you have a revenue of less than $250,000 or something like that. At some point when you get large enough, yeah, sure, I mean, it makes sense that you have to pay for the tools you use. And I think there's a watermark of the splash screen and so on. Yeah. But anyway, that was a small rant about another of my passions, both making games and Unity, because I just like the people who did it, and I've met so many wonderful people in both that company but also associated with it, and it's just, I don't know, I have a soft spot for it. And I know there are other engines. There's Unreal the Unreal Engine is just called, which is, I think, in many ways can do things Unity can't. I think that's the right way of saying it, because it's not better, it's not worse, it's just a different target audience it has. Yeah, but go download it, play around with it, and you'll find a lot of tutorials for getting to know Unity when you're not a programmer. They will, carry you through everything, and you don't have to write full programs. That's another thing. What you write are small behaviors, as they're called, which basically, now we're at the point where these two objects have collided with each other. What should happen? And you do something simple like one of them just stops being there. Just kill it off and remove it from the game, whatever. There's just literally one line of code to do that. So you don't have to worry about all the intricacies of programming to begin with. You can get a lot of stuff done by following tutorials and very simple concepts and things. So yeah, I hope you have fun. Yeah, actually there was a video going around called, I think it was just called Adam, and I saw Adam 2 and Adam 3 in the Oats studio, which is currently on Netflix here in Denmark, but I think they're also on YouTube, and that is made with Unity, and that is really, really professionally made, high-end graphics with robots. I think robots escaping from a kind of robot prison camp or something like that. No dialogue that I remember, just a lot of well, I was gonna say facial expressions, and then remember that it's actually robots, so not so much facial expressions, but still they express a lot through their posture and things. So yeah. Oh yeah, you mentioned Blender. It's that's what I learned doing, the boat I mentioned earlier. That was in Blender. Didn't go too well, but then I come across Inventia, that I've also mentioned. I think it was a Swedish guy who's not as such doing tutorials. He made a few, including ones for Unity and how to get Blender models into Unity, but he did some 10-minute challenges where he would just speed paint or speed model whatever in low polygons. It's a really, really cool style that looks good. I mean, Deep Rock Galactic has low polygon count as well, and it looks amazingly well, and it works. So it's a really cool way of making kind of stylized assets where you can emphasize the parts of the model you want to emphasize, and make it pop a lot more, I think. But anyway, Inventia did these 10-minute challenges, and I looked at one of them just more or less by random, came across it and just went, hey, that looks cool. And it was a short video, 15 minutes with the 10 minutes and then the intro outro. You just watched it and he just did so many things with so few tools and effects. So he doesn't as such go through it, but when you just look at his workflow, that's something that's often a lot more important to watch than learning all the commands in Blender, for instance. See how talented people work in Blender. And the way he did it is basically just, I mean, he's kind of got a motto that's called E to extrude, S to scale, because that's what he does. He just uses those two tools and he builds up from basically a standard cube. He just builds really good looking models. And I figured, hey, I don't need to do photorealistic models. I can just do low poly stuff, because I'm probably not going to be a full photorealistic 3D artist ever. I mean, I'm a programmer, I paint miniatures, I play D&D. I cannot also be a 3D modeler. That would be pushing it a little bit. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. I want to spend my time on other things. So yeah. Oh, the donut tutorial. I never went through that because it goes through so many different topics and sprinkles and lighting and light settings and blah 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 blah. And I know others who've gone through it, and even though they made a really cool looking donut, it was a little hard for them to apply the techniques to other things, because a lot of it was very specific to the donuts. What I like about the low poly stuff is that it looks good, it's easy to make, it is really quick to make, and hey, you can include it in video games using Unity. Really, really simple. And for me, that was a good move, because it took me from having gray boxes and spheres running around to having something that looks like something. And even if it has a low polygon count, it will still look good once you actually see it moving around in a game. So, I mean, I think I spent the first time around maybe an afternoon or so toying around with getting the stuff set up, initial setup for a scene in Blender that he uses. And then I just took his 10-minute videos and followed them step by step, taking about, I don't know, an hour or more for each of his 10-minute videos, just going, okay, so now he's doing this. Cool. Okay, wait, how did he do that? I would go back and forth, I would pause it, run it in slow motion, and just mimic the movements he made and the stuff he made. And it took me an afternoon to get to a point where I could work independently on things and just make up, see something in my head going, oh, I want to make some trees and some rocks for a small game that's set in a forest scene, whatever. I did that at some point. And just sit and go, okay, so a rock is kind of rounded, and okay, so that's gonna be, I'm gonna be pushing in the corners here and there, subdividing, blah blah blah, all those things. And so following, not a tutorial, but he has a setup video. I'll send it to you afterwards. He has a video where he sets up his scene, which is a really good place to start. And then he just took it from there. And it literally only took an afternoon to slowly just work through the tutorials. And it's not saying that I'm particularly fast or quick at learning these things. It's just to say that there wasn't a lot to learn. I mean, it basically comes down to E to extrude, S to scale. How ironic it sounds, it is actually true. Even to the point where I decided to buy one of his t-shirts, merchandise, to support him a little bit more. So I have a t-shirt that says E to extrude, S to scale, but you can't read it because with so many other t-shirts, my beard hides it. Okay, so for the cape, there are basically two ways we can go about it. I mean, there's a little bit of shading in it now, but I want to be even more emphasized. And I also wanted to actually really pop, so I'm actually gonna go for a black wash on the cape, and then touching it up a little bit with the bright blue, which will be later because it's getting late and I should stop streaming soon. But the shading here also needs to dry out first. But it's actually the same shade I'm gonna be using on the metal parts. We've done like the legs, and I'm gonna mess up the legs now because I am holding his foot. I'm gonna clean that up later. Besides, no one's gonna see his foot anyway. It's gonna be hidden away on the base. So yeah. I think I actually have a stream or two where I'm doing things in Blender to see my workflow, and it is not as quick as the Swedish guy. It's a lot slower. Plus, I always get distracted and talk about things while painting miniatures or doing other things. So, and I'm not good at both talking and thinking about things and painting or whatever. So, but yeah, it's cool. I think it's a fun thing, just like with crocheting. It's a fun thing to be able to do because you create something. 3D modeling, it's obviously a 3D model. Crocheting, you can do anything. You can do scarves or blouses, anything really, or you can do the amigurumi, small toys, things like that. So yeah, you could dedicate time on your stream to learning Blender. I don't know if that would be good or bad, but the thing about amigurumis that always trips me up is getting the magic circle started just right. For some reason, that's the hardest part for me to learn. Once that's there, the second challenge is to actually keep focused enough to not lose count of where I am. And that's where I use a piece of paper for marking down what row I'm at, and I use the knitting markers to mark off where the row starts and all that. So there are tools to help there. But getting the first magic circle up and running usually takes me 2 or 3 attempts to make it happen properly. Which I think is odd, but I also think that's probably because I do it once per amigurumi and then don't do it again until the next time I feel silly enough to do some crocheting. Yeah. So anyway, we're just gonna go for a quick black wash around the belt. I'm intentionally spilling it over onto his green shirt to kind of give sort of a cartoonish cell shading kind of look, hopefully, if I don't mess it up. Doing the trick where you highlight an area by outlining it in black makes it very, very clear to see what is what at a distance on both miniatures and in cartoons or other printed media. Slipped a little bit too far out here, so we can just clean it up a little bit. It does kind of work. It just gives that extra little thing here on his right side, but it just stands out just a little bit more, just enough that it looks slightly better. Where? I also have very dirty fingers for now. Basically, that is not really a bad place to stop. I would like to do the rest of him. I basically just need the cape, and then I'm gonna call it quits to also have him done. He's not as brightly colored as I would have liked because he got a little bit grimy from the brownish wash, but still, it looks good. It works, and you know the face and the beard especially just really works with the shadows and everything. So I'm just gonna quickly hold here and then just shape down the cape, and that should be it. You can see here that it does darken the overall tone of the cape, but the black shade here mainly goes into the recesses, making them stand out more clearly, and I can do some highlighting later on with the bright blue again, just to bring out the lines better. Just quickly go down here. This is kind of why I think, you know, shading sometimes feel like cheating, because all of that in what, 3, maybe 4 brush strokes, and it just adds so much to the miniature. Let's do the inside as well. And just gently outlining it. Just a little bit. And how do we get to that side? I'm struggling here to not mess up the paint job too much by, you know, smudging it with my fingers. I have in a few places, but that can be fixed later on. Basically, I generally think that was it. A little bit too much down here. Over time, it will creep down into the recesses and getting a little bit sharper. But hey, just highlighting it quite aggressively later on is gonna make it return to the bright blue state it was in when I began, and the kind of color effect I go for. So anyway, I am just about done. So I will say thank you for joining. It was a pleasure having you here, both you, Ori, and the others that dropped in and out. If you haven't already gone to check out the Incorrigible Party, please do so, and check out Ori's channel as well, Origami Girl 95. Other than that, it's been my pleasure having you here. Bye for now.